Hey guys, it's Jessica Fury, host of Dumb Girl Podcast. Tune in every Monday for new episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Welcome back to Dumb Girl Podcast. Today we have Christen Tull. Christen has been in the real estate business for 22 years. She is a managing partner at Sync Brokerage. She is the founder of the LA Native Real Estate Group. She started as an escrow officer and transitioned into a developer, agent, and investor. Christen is an innovator, leader, and she successfully tackles each transaction with diligence and her own poise, which makes her one of the best in the business. Christen often openly offers her time, knowledge, and experience with a genuine intention to see someone succeed and or potentially overcome a red flag that she has either witnessed or overcame herself. Christen, welcome to Dumb Girl Podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. And we were even talking about that before we even came on there, is like, you just have such a natural way of being helpful in the business. And can you speak on that, just to start with that? Like, was it something that you weren't getting that help when you came into the business, either as an agent? I know that you were an escrow officer, but I definitely want to come from the side of like an agent. Was it that you weren't getting that help and you decided that, like, I'm going to be that helpful? What's your story?
I mean, I can't answer that question without going into the escrow background just a touch. So as an escrow, I started as an escrow assistant. I worked my way up. That's how I learned the business. You basically do all of the jobs in order to close a transaction. So sometimes I'd have an agent who either didn't know what they were doing or didn't care, or both, unfortunately. And so I really had to learn kind of the agent side of it as well, and explain things in a way that made sense for buyers, sellers. And so as well as being really curious, I want to know how everything works. That's just the way my brain is. I'm sure it's kind of a pain sometimes. And so, I really come from that platform of explanation. So when I transitioned into real estate, I did find, I can be a little socially awkward, and I am actually introverted by nature. So I stood behind, this kind of a mask of knowledge at first as more of a protection mechanism, as a coping mechanism for putting myself out there. And what it did, I was very fortunate. What it did was it attracted people to me by sharing my knowledge so openly. And it helped me to be successful in a business where, that fear of talking to people that you don't know can be, really detrimental to launching your career.
Yeah, I mean, I don't struggle with the conversation that I would have to be initiating the conversation with the person. I think it's more of like transitioning them to want to work with me.
I mean,
because we all know a realtor. We either have a license, know someone who has a license, or we know someone who is involved in it that they can set up with their realtor. Like, that's kind of like the circle of real estate.
Absolutely. I think, though, that decision is made when a buyer or seller finds value in you. And so really being true to who you are as a person and what your strengths are as an agent, I think that is ultimately the special thing that sets you apart that might make a buyer or seller choose to work with you. In my case, it is my technical knowledge and my ability to break it down, I think, and my love of doing so, right? So as an agent, I don't make decisions. I support and I achieve my clients' goals. And in order to do that, I have to explain to them what all of our options are. And, they don't necessarily always agree with my preferred course of action. And again, that's just part of my job, is listening, educating, and then enacting my clients' wishes.
But that came from experience, or it came from I see your character as someone who is genuine and is like, I don't care if you've been in this game for 10 years, 20 years, or 10 days. I'm still going to explain it to you in the way that it needs to be explained so you can better understand it, so you can be more successful, you can be more knowledgeable, and you can show it for yourself as a business owner. And also, it's a matter of relationship, like being in the relationship with the person that is your client or someone on your team.
It is. I think it's, it comes from a place of respect for other people, first and foremost. Like, that's always top of mind. I don't have to agree with someone. I don't have to be the same as them. But it also just comes from a love of teaching, of nurturing. I love to watch things grow, and not just in my business, but also in my home. So, my garden, the plants in the house, my little Pomeranians, the baby in my tummy. I love to watch people and things grow. I love to nurture them. That's truly where my role shines. So that's just a part of who I am.
Yeah. Are you patient? Are you a patient person?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I wouldn't describe myself as a patient person, and I don't think my husband would either.
Yeah.
But when it comes to explaining things, I think I am. Because if I'm not listening to someone and what it is and how they need to hear information or have it broken down, I'm never going to achieve the goal of transferring that information. So a little bit of patience goes a really long way there, because what's the point of any of the effort I'm making if I'm not giving people what they need in a way that they need to receive it in order for it to click for them?
So I want you to answer this in 3 parts. And let's imagine for yourself that you are a patient person. I'm very into personal development. And a lot of times at the beginning of my day, I try to find a way to ask the universe, how can I be in service to another person? That's my thing. When I wake up and do my stuff, I'm like, how can I be in service to another person? How can I get out of myself? Because I know that my needs will be met if I'm giving back to others.
Mm-hmm.
And one would be a new agent, because you can be exceptionally impatient because you're an agent who is doing what they're doing, not a lazy, person who's doing what they're doing. A person who is a potential buyer, and you're explaining how to utilize patience with a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And from a seller standpoint, I want you to answer those in 3 parts if you can.
So how would I tackle being patient with each of those type of people?
Yes, as a coach, as you show up as a coach for each of those individuals, and I know that firsthand.
Yeah. So with a new agent, when I'm coaching them, and this is the toughest bit for me to be patient in, because I'm so excited. I just want to impart everything I have to say in my opinion. But my opinion's not super important. My experience and how I can provide guidance in relation to what I've experienced is really important to them, but only after I hear what it is that's important to them, what their aspirations are, what they like about the business, what concerns them, what they think their weaker points are. And a lot of new agents have a lot of preconceived, ideas about what the business is and about what it is they do. And they're hearing things, they're seeing things, a lot of the glamorized points of the business and not the nitty gritty, the hard work, or maybe just the less exciting aspects of the work. And so that's the part for me that is harder to be patient with, is that initial tackling of the preconceived notion. So what do? I just practice patience with them. And I know that once they kind of get through telling me what their preconceived notions are, that's the only time I can be effective in helping to coach them beyond those things, to see the business as it truly is, so that we can actually work on what their real goals are, goals that are going to produce results.
Okay. No, that's okay. I got you.
Okay.
So let's say you're working with a buyer. Okay. So now you have a buyer and you're actively working with them, whether it's in this market. We'll say in the market currently where we are right now.
Yeah.
It is a positive that there's not as many offers, but the patience of working with a buyer right now.
Yeah. So the way that I'm patient working with a buyer now, and obviously different buyers are going to differ in their level of need and the time that they take, their journey, right? Every buyer has a journey. It's not typically a short or easy one. It can be, but it's not, is that I try to put myself in their shoes. This is one of the biggest financial purchases they ever make. There's a lot of emotion involved in it. They don't always know what they want. And I think of myself as, their guide. It's my job to guide them, not to push them, not to force them. You have to really listen. It's really only then that you're going to create that long-lasting relationship with the buyer and successfully close a transaction. It's tough at times to be that patient, but if you can't, you're not really a buyer's agent. A buyer's agent has to have the most patience, I think, of any type of agent in this business.
And why is that?
Like I said, it's a journey, it's a process. Buyer education doesn't always happen based on what you're telling your client. A lot of it they have to experience, and that experience, it takes time. They have to lose out in a multiple offer situation, or they have to lose out on even having the chance to make an offer on a home because someone else that was more prepared and pre-qualified came in and did that. They might not be ready, or, just don't want to accept market conditions. Perhaps they want a home in a certain area because it makes sense for where they work, or where, they want their children to go to school, but their budget is not quite matching it. So it's really about that process, just, working that process with them. And that's not easy because they have to see it and feel it themselves, and you have to allow them to do it.
Yeah, I think that would be applying the golden rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'll speak for myself. I will buy a home, whether if it's multiple homes. My vision does connect to those things, but I would say that, like, putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
100%.
Like, all right, great, here's $2 million cash. That may be a story for some people, but a lot of people, it's a process. It's an emotional process.
It's a huge process. Yeah, it's a learning process. It's an emotional process. And I'm really glad that you brought the golden rule up, because that is sort of the ideal I live my life by. That is absolutely the attitude and the mantra I bring into my business every single day, whether or not it's with a new agent or a buyer. Every time I engage in anything that I do, I try to keep that at the top of my mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna just take a little bit of a detour. We were talking right before we came on this episode, and we were talking about energy, and I was telling Christen that I align so much with people's energy. Like, I can almost connect with them. I'd rather connect with someone on a personal level, which is a lot of times when I cold email or cold call people, I'm not going to say most of the time they're going to say no to me, but most of the time they're going to say no to me. But if I'm in front of them, I win them over, because there's a way that I can just connect to them for who they are.
Yes.
And connect to them. But as an agent, I have met agents that are open and willing and ready, as a buyer is open, willing, and ready to be helpful.
Yes.
Because they've seen the work of what it takes to start in this business, that they're like, okay, it's no skin off my back just to give you a little 2 cents of this business. And then you get others that they just don't have the time or patience. And applying that golden rule and just being able to connect to a person who just wants to thrive in their own business, like, I look at it as like there's more than enough to go around.
Absolutely.
Like, what's the fight for? Like, you have a business, you want to make success, great. Everybody has like different goals, different visions. It may all look similar, but it's not. It's very different. So applying the golden rule, I think it's so essential. And then most of the time people aren't thinking about that.
I think that they aren't necessarily, but also I think that a lot of the training that's out there in the world in regards to developing your real estate business, I think it is very self-motivated. People are thinking about income. They're thinking about closing a deal. And some of that training, it might result in that. But ultimately, and this is, again, the platform, just my way of doing things, is I focus on the relationship, because I don't need to close that one transaction. I want to earn your business for your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that means I get referral business as well. So did it take me a little longer to launch my business? Probably. But my relationships, they're long lasting. They're meaningful. I call my clients most of the time my friends. And it really is a friendship. And it comes back to me, and it has really secured my position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, going back to the third thing, sellers.
Yes.
And patient with sellers, whether you're the seller and applying patience or the agent representing the seller.
So as far as agent or seller and representing, a listing, as far as the sale is concerned, it's situational, right? Sometimes it's you need the right buyer because the home is unique. Sometimes the market, the market has shifted a little bit. And so it's being patient with strategy. It's being patient with marketing. At other times, patience has limits, and time on market can hurt a sale ultimately. So I think it's a balance of patience between managing personalities, giving the right buyer in the market time to speak. But ultimately, I don't think patience is as necessary with a seller or in a sale transaction. I think it can be detrimental. I mean, obviously, being patient with the person you're working with is important. And I'll tell you where I have to exercise patience the most with the seller. And I think a seller with an agent as well, it's a two-way street, is pricing. So, a seller obviously is typically going to want the highest price possible, and they're very emotionally invested and tied to their home, which I totally understand. But sometimes it gives them an unrealistic expectation of where the value of their home is in relation to comparable homes that are for sale or have sold recently. And, I think as far as, where they're coming from, it's a valid number. It's a valid value, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't have that same emotional connection to the home. And so for myself, not so much. And so it's being patient with allowing a seller to explore listing their home and trying to obtain an offer at the value that they think their home holds. Whereas as a listing agent with a lot of experience, I'm looking at these comparable sales and I'm thinking it's not going to happen. But you know what? I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong in that case. I hope I can get my seller more money. So it's maybe trying their price out before, we reduce a price to what I think current market value is.
Yeah. And they have such high expectations.
They do. And they should. It's their home. They love it. It's, again, most sellers are not selling to go, on vacation and buy jewelry or stick it into an investment account. Most of the time they're selling for their upleg, for what they're going to live in next. So I understand that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's just that patience factor, that patience level of trying that their way, supporting it, trying to achieve their objectives. And if it doesn't work out, being patient and revisiting the subject, because ultimately they still have the same goals. Perhaps we're just not going to achieve them the same way.
Yeah, I agree with you. You have a lot of experience in this business, so I'm sure that you've seen a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of friends of mine who have been buying and investing in real estate for some number of years, longer than you and I have been alive. And they've said, it's ebb and flow, Jess. Like, it's an ebb and flow. I've seen 3 of these, or I was on the phone with someone the other day. She's a close friend of mine. She's 71. She's like, I think this is my 4th one or 3rd one that I've been through. She's like, just trust me. Just trust me. What is your experience with such a challenging time, and what's the transition that you normally do see from a slower period of time that's going on to something that's a little bit more at a swifter pace?
So I agree with your friend. It does just ebb and flow. And it's something that I tell agents around me or on my team is, if you're making great money and the market's hot, save it, because that means a slower time is to follow. And if you don't save it, you're not going to have the ability to ride that slower time out. As far as the approach to what I do, I don't necessarily change much about what it is I do, because I try to keep myself at that high level where I treat every deal like the most important one I've ever handled, right? Every potential client, I treat them like they're my absolutely best client. So I don't change a lot in my approach. I might do more outreach, and I might ask a little bit more directly from my sphere of influence or past clients. However, when I was a new agent, what did I do? Well, I started sitting every single open house that anyone would give me, even if it was a lease listing, just to keep myself practiced, lucid in the moment, like prepared to work with someone when I got the opportunity. Because there might have been fewer opportunities, but when they come, you have to be just as ready for them. And if you're out of practice and you're lazy and you're slower because not as much is going on, well, now you've lost one of those fewer opportunities. I think there was a second part to that question.
And transitioning into a swifter time, I understand, saving the money and maintaining the relationships. Now, applying it to the team that you have or the many agents, whether it's 300, 400 agents that you've worked with at one time to a smaller scale of agents that you prefer now to work with. What is it that you coach them with, and how do you help them apply this transitional time to be successful when it opens up, or to continue to maintain to be successful? Because there are agents, there are deals that are being closed, there are offers being made, homes are being sold right now, but
They are.
those that maybe it's slowed down.
So I'm really honest about it. It's okay to be slower. It happens. It happens to all agents. Some people, are luckier than others. Is not to give up, not to be discouraged. You still have to come, like I said, with that, that love, that care, that curiosity, that drive, which is hard to do when you're not seeing results, right? So I bring it back to a personal place of making sure that you're okay, that you're personally centered, that we have support within the office, within my team, that we're available, that we very honestly and openly share our fears and discuss them and support one another in them. Also, though we need to work harder when it's slower, it's also about making sure you take personal time to completely unplug and refresh. Because I don't care how much drive you have, you will be burnt out if you don't take that time to refresh. And a lot of us don't reward ourselves when we're not seeing results. If you're putting the effort in, I think it's rewardable.
What's a rewardable act? Buying a Chanel bag?
I mean, if you're hurting for business, that's probably not the best. But a reward is different for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Reprieve is different for everyone. Rest is different for everyone. So, and this is, again, it comes back to my whole platform on how I teach, how I operate my business. Everyone is different. So I collaborate with the agents on my team, the agents within my brokerage that I train. We talk about, what makes you feel better? Like for myself, a really nice bottle of wine with a well-prepared meal, which I don't typically have time for. Like that's one of my favorite things. Mm-hmm. I also love to travel. For some people, it is financial things. For some people, it's that yoga retreat. It is more time for themselves. It is reading, or even just something as simple as unplugging and watching an extra episode of something, before they go to sleep at night. Yeah. Being with nature, just being outdoors, whatever it is, it's really important that you make time for that as well. I don't care how busy you are. I've been in 25 transactions at once. If you don't make that time, you're going to fall on your face at some point, and it's going to hurt you later.
I love to see that.
Yeah. So just make time, reward yourself. If you're putting in the effort, it's rewardable.
Yeah. I do a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. Do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is?
Not familiar.
Okay. I'm not going to nerd out on this episode, but I do talk about his work. I'm very into personal development, spirituality, meditation. It's like a thing that I'm very into. It's the foundation of everything I've ever created. It's the foundation of everything, literally. And I talk about it so openly to others on this platform that I'm creating is because I genuinely want people to have them for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, I genuinely want people to have those things. And I do take that daily, those daily rewards. But he says you have to celebrate your small wins, big wins, small wins. You have to celebrate them.
Yes.
Like, even if it's like having a great conversation with somebody who's like, yeah, give me your contact information. Like, let's stay in touch.
100%.
Like, and then you send them. What I do is I actually send them a text within minutes of meeting them. I'll sit in my car and I'll send a text, send an email. It's instant, and they remember it. If I wait too long, they're going to be like,
who's just the same impact?
Who's Jessica Fury? Yeah. Maybe they will because I have red hair, which works sometimes for me. No, it works sometimes for me.
Beautiful.
People don't remember me, but they'll be like, the redhead. So it's like those things, but it's those little small wins that I think it's so valuable. And you started to talk about the value of relationships, and I want to talk a little bit more about that because we have relationships with our peers. We have relationships with our partners, significant others. And putting that aside, I was I connect with a lot of agents because making a connection to someone putting, daily income or how many sales you've made, putting that all aside, it's the connection. And I met with one of the managing partners a couple weeks ago, and he's been in the business for 35 years. And, I was telling him about this. I have a personal training business, and I've been in that industry for such a long time that, my clients mean so much to me. They know I'm in real estate. They know I have another business. And one of them, I was telling this gentleman who's been in the real estate business for many years, I was telling him a story about his house, and my client will not sell. He won't. He will sell under two conditions. An all-cash offer of $5 million. And if you want information, you could just send me a message. An all-cash offer of $5 million, or him passing because he's 85. And my client, I turned to him and I said, "What would you do?" He said, "Don't force it. Just work on the relationship."
Yeah.
Don't. He's like, because the success of my business has come from the relationships. I don't force people. I'm not aggressive. I guide. And when you guide people, they're more open to trusting you regardless of where you're in your business. And can you speak about a specific situation that has gone on in your business, whether it's a positive or a negative, of how a relationship has impacted your business or how you go about doing your business?
Yeah, absolutely. As an agent, we direct business to a lot of people, right? A lender, an NHD company, a title company, all of these service providers that assist us. Because I come from a technical standpoint of wanting to educate and support my clients with no ulterior motive, really, I will only work with other people like that. And I was really fortunate enough to meet a fantastic mortgage broker who I've been working with for like 10 years now. He's amazing, who really has the same ideals that I do. And I met him through an agent I disliked that I had a very tumultuous transaction with, to say like that's understating it. And so I was not predisposed to like this man, this mortgage broker, when I met him. But his work ethic and his knowledge, it really stood out. And even though it was a tough transaction, he was so lovely to deal with and a very calming influence, even his voice. I consider him a friend now. And sometimes I call him just because I know I'm going to feel better after I talk to him, even if we don't really talk about much. Mm-hmm. So I have religiously directed business to him, not just to my own clients, but to other agents, and as a resource for lending. And I can't tell you how much better my business is because of focusing on that relationship with him, even when I didn't have business to give him. I was telling other people about him. I wanted to hear what came out of his mouth. It eventually became that his opinion on financial matters to me, so much so that a lot of times I might even discuss things with him before I discuss them with my husband. I have never had such loyal business or referrals from anyone like I do from him. I closed a large Beverly Hills flat sale in January. Those clients came from him. They're of such a high net worth level that they no longer use him because it makes more sense for them to use their private banking relationship and not a mortgage broker. And this is what I mean is that relationship with him and the people that are attracted to him are also going to be attracted to me because I'm very true to myself and who I involve in my business and how I maintain those relationships. I think they've subsequently closed 3 transactions with me now. And these people intimidated me when I first met them, but by just genuinely caring about them, and let me backtrack a second. They intimidated me because they're gorgeous, they're wealthy, and they're very smart and very skeptical, which is probably why I worked for them, because I like to explain things. Mm-hmm. But I would consider them friends now. They had me over to their house last Friday. We had appetizers and a tour of what they've done to their new home, played with our dogs, that sort of thing. And now I'm receiving a referral from them. And I keep on bringing up the referral thing, not as it being a sign of my success in my business, more as a sign of success of their trust in me, the relationship I built with them, right? I'm now creating a third relationship off of the initial relationship I made from a transaction where I was involved with someone that wasn't pleasant. It's about treating people with respect. And, if I hadn't treated this mortgage broker with respect, who was affiliated with this agent who was not showing me any respect, I would not have been where I was on Friday. It's a process. It's a journey. And just treating people well and focusing on the relationship, that's what's going to get you everywhere in life.
That's your golden rule.
Yeah. It's not just business. It's personal. I mean, there should be no difference in how I conduct my professional life as how I conduct my personal life. Mm-hmm. There really shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask on the other side of that because I was joking around with someone the other day, and some people don't get my jokes, which is okay with me because then I realize that I'm the only person who finds them funny. And I was like, my ego isn't big enough in this game yet, so let me just, it's okay. But I've also have come across, and I do want to just ask this point blank, and if it has happened to other people that are listening, is like, I've asked people for stuff that are, we'll just say because it's a numbers thing, that are big agents, they don't answer. They just kind of move you aside. And it's one of those things where I have to actually go back to the inner work that I do, because then I look at it as, and I'm going to speak about this openly because I know that somebody is going to hear this and be like, shit, that's exactly what I think. I'm not big enough to them to get their respect. I'm not big enough of an agent. I'm not closing enough in their eyes for them to give me their time of day. That's the thing that I've come across. And then you get other people who are in that same position and they shoot the shit with you. They want nothing more than to break bread with you and to spend that time with you. And how do you overcome those things, whether personally or the way that you've connected with your agents to overcome those things?
So I think first and foremost, internally, you have to show yourself the respect of recognizing that this person's behaving inappropriately and you do deserve the time and the respect. If they're not giving it to you, it is a them issue. So not letting it affect you in your future relationships, very important. Mm-hmm. But, I think that once you recognize that, it's much easier to address the issue with people who are being dismissive of you. And I have no problem being really direct and a little bit in someone's face who's being dismissive of me. I'm not argumentative. I'm not rude. But, if someone is brushing me off, it's like, hey, wait a second. I was asking you a question. I don't have any issue with calling them out a little bit. Mm-hmm. If they still want to brush me off, I'm not going to make a big thing about it. Mm-hmm. But also, the meek don't inherit the earth, right? I have no problem speaking up. But what does that come from? It all comes back to knowing your value and really knowing you have value to provide to other people. Mm-hmm. Again, just that golden rule of the way you operate. And don't get me wrong, I have my bad days where it's F this and F that. And no, I'm not doing that. I'm just not leaving the house today. We all have that.
Yeah.
But it is recognizing it and making sure you're not affecting other people that way. Don't let anyone make you feel any way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And on those moments that it happens, I almost apply like that real estate follow-up game. When I see them in person, I'll be like, hey, I sent you a message, just wanted to see if you've had a chance to see it. And that's something that I will do. And other times, and this is now applying that I'm very into like personal development and creating a vision, I just come back to my vision. I'm like, well, what's my vision? Because my vision is not there. So I'm just going to come back to what am I here for? What am I aligned with? Sometimes I'll just like, oh, you know what? What's something I have to do that's the complete opposite of this? And maybe it's not real estate for a second. Maybe the time that I take a time out is like just to, and then come back in. Like some people do like a lunch break.
Correction is important.
Yeah. I just like throw on a podcast sometimes. That's just something that really helps me. And now I just want to get really personal with you because now you are about to have a child.
Yeah.
In a month.
Yes.
Has this changed anything in your business? Do you still like just wake up and like want to work your business? Have you slowed down? Are you still just as busy?
It hasn't changed my business at all, right? I don't have a career that's physically demanding. I have one that's mentally demanding, and I love what I do. I absolutely love it. So, please don't take it away from me. Pregnancy and a child is not going to take it away from me. If anything, I feel like it just gives me a higher level depth of understanding of, a family's needs for their home, even more patience and compassion. It also puts things in perspective for me as far as who I am, what my role is, being an even stronger leader, a better teacher, because I want to be that for my daughter. Being a better wife, being a better support person, a better listener. I want to be that for my husband. And it's just a very large physical reminder that helps me stay present in those goals. But no, it hasn't changed my business application at all. If anything, I think, like I said, most of my clients and the people I work with, I have a real relationship with them. It's given us something kind of exciting to talk about. It's also been amazing to see, because I'm usually the leader, I'm usually the trainer. There are days I don't feel well, or I need extra help, or I just feel big and not so great. Is that vulnerability? It's so much easier for me to reach out and just, confide in a friend or mention to a client, it's a little rough, but we do what we've got to do. And knowing that they don't see a change in my role in the support I'm providing to them or the service I'm providing to them, and that they genuinely care. So I'm being more vulnerable, and it's creating more confidence in me, being able to ask for help or mention that I'm having a tough time or a little tired, and the compassion that I'm receiving from everyone, the support, it's overwhelming and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure your team adores it. Like
I'm about to cry a little bit, actually.
No, please. I've cried on podcast episodes, but
It's touched.
Your team, you've created a really solid team. I'm a person of observation. Sometimes it's like my own way of being, where I was like, let me just observe before I act. Let me just observe, and then I'll act instead of reacting. And that's taken years of work and will continue to take years of work. Not perfect, but just being observant. And I like to observe the real estate space, because somebody who's newer in the business, the way to learn is also through observation. And when you asked me, what have you been doing if you haven't been getting the type of support from a specific team member? What is it that I'm just like, well, I throw myself into other things. And speaking directly to you, you've created such a home, warm, family-like connection with your team. And that seems to be something that you value, and they seem to be on board with it. Is it something that you make mention to them, or it's just the people that you've chose to bring it? Like, what is it that you make mention to your team members?
Both. So before I'd consider adding an agent to my team, I let them know what's important to me as far as the identity of the team. I've made sure that the team consists only of agents who have the same desire for an environment. I literally think of my team as a second family. We celebrate our wins and our losses together. We work our asses off, and I want to do it with people that I love and respect, and I know have my back and I can trust. I expect every team agent, myself included, to support one another, even if that's covering a lease showing in Orange County, whatever it is. It's that care. It is really a family. And so when I'm considering adding someone to the team, I make sure they know that. But the second thing I do is I don't enter into that relationship lightly. We date for a while. I invite anyone I'm considering adding to the team to come in and work with the team at team meetings, to get the vibe for who we are, what our identity is as a team. But also, it's not just my decision. Ultimately, I am the leader of LA Native, but every voice in LA Native has equal weight as far as the makeup of our team and how we conduct ourselves. It's a collaboration. And I've definitely had some misses. It wasn't always hits, right? But it was easy for us to identify because we have that collaborative conversation. If something's not working, someone's not fitting, I'll give them the opportunity to try to acclimate to our environment, which, I understand can be difficult because I think a lot of teams are run very differently than mine. But, ultimately, if it's not good for all of us, it's not good for any of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I have a friend who's with a different firm, and I was just on the phone with her the other day, and we were just talking about just nothing, just girl stuff, nothing. But then I just happened to mention something to her, and she's been in the business for maybe 10 plus years. She says, Jess, I just want you to consider something for a second. When you're on someone's team, you know that they're getting half your split, right? You know that, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, aside from the brokerage taking their percentage off the top, do you know, does that person have your back? Are they there for you? Are they trusting? Do they see your vision? Are they being supportive? She's like, because those are things that sometimes we don't think about because we just want to throw ourselves into the team and into the name. But she's like, that's where I've really been able to learn in this business and to gain my own success in this business is are my needs being met?
Yeah.
And that is in itself has been wait, hold up for a second. Are my needs being met? And I'm going to have my needs met. And that's something that I think that a lot of times people in the business is just looking, yes, we are looking for numbers, transactions, validation. People know my name, let people know my name, get the calls, get this, get that. I've had those conversations with myself and I'm like, wait, hold on. Now that somebody who's close to me, who has a big business was like, just remember, are your needs being met? Are they aligning with your vision? Are they aligning with your energy? And yeah. When I first met you a few years ago, when I first came into the business, like I said it at the beginning of this episode, you have such poise and you are sassy. I mean, you guys don't get it twisted. She is sassy.
Oh yeah. I'm being really sweet right now.
No, you are. Because we're
sassy. Talking about the sweet stuff.
I know, because you're sassy. Yes. Like, why would you do something like that when it doesn't, you'll have to reach out to her to ask her on her own. I mean, I just feel fortunate she would answer my calls. But you have created something within your team and now you're creating for your family. And I really think that that's something you should be so proud of yourself that you've created that. And if you don't take time to yourself daily, that's your big win of this.
Thank you.
It really, truly is. I ask all my guests 3 questions before they leave me. One of them is, what is a non-negotiable in your morning routine that sets you up for the day?
Coffee in bed with my husband and dogs.
Can you drink coffee?
1 cup.
Yeah,
I miss that. I want more.
You have cute Pomeranians.
I do. They're sassy too, though.
It's so cute. Can you leave the listeners with one piece of advice or suggestion that they can apply to their daily routine, their business, and or relationship?
Yeah. Whether it's reward or work. Before you decide you're finished and you move on to your next thing, ask yourself, is that it? Do I have one more thing in me? Can I make this a little bit better? How do I feel about this? Is there more? Do I need to do more for this before I move on?
I like that. I'm going to think about that. What are 3 qualities peers of yours would say about you?
Sassy.
Can't be introverted and sassy.
I don't know. It depends on who you're comfortable with. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't marry an Englishman for nothing, right? I've got that dry sarcasm. I'm sassy. I know that they would say that I'm really generous. I'm generous with my time, guidance, money, whatever it is. I am a generous person, and that, it's just who I am, and I have seen it return to me so much. It's not for the reward. Generosity is contagious, and it is it's just a lovely way to live your life.
Mm-hmm. And you do apply that golden rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really do. I'll say one last thing before I wrap this with the introvert and the extrovert. I was listening to something a couple weeks ago, and the woman was like, I'm an introvert because I don't need to get my energy from the outside. A lot of people are extroverts. They have to get their energy from the outside as opposed to get it from the inside. So lately I've been like, oh, maybe I am a little bit more introverted, even though I like to sort of be a social butterfly. Christen, thank you so much, for being here and for carrying a message and just sharing so many nuggets. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to listen to this again. Where can people find you? Plug yourself.
So you can find me at my office most days, Sync Brokerage, Beverly Hills. I'm on Canon. I have a YouTube channel. All you have to do is search my name. It's geared mostly towards educational material for other agents. And my team name is LA Native. You can find us on Instagram. We don't have Facebook.
I don't even think that people use Facebook as much anymore, but that's just my 2 cents.
And you can always check us out on our website, lanative.homes.
Yeah, I follow her YouTube, and her YouTube is really helpful because regardless of where you are in the business, Christen, man, can kick your ass. It's operation. She literally, you're so strategic and you're so fine, detailed. So she'll go over information, contracts, detail, how to talk to your client. And it's so informative. You guys can follow me at Jessica J. Fury, at Dumb Girl Podcast, at Jessica Fury Real Estate. And we are on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, guys.